The title is straightforward, and I'll say it out loud. 12 attitudes of strong men that weak men never adopt. And before you think this is just another empty motivational speech, let me address that objection now. These attitudes aren't superpowers. They aren't special talents. And they don't depend on luck. They are decisions. Daily, small, silent decisions. But which, added together, create a brutal difference between emotionally strong men and emotionally weak men. And the most curious thing, you already notice it in your daily life, even without realizing it. You know that guy who explodes over anything, or that other one who stays calm even when everything is falling apart around him. You know the one who begs for attention, and the one who simply withdraws with dignity. That's it. It's no mystery. It's attitudes, and that's what separates those who grow from those who crumble. And I'll be very honest with you. If you watch this video until the end, you'll realize that the last actions are precisely the most difficult, and that's exactly why they're the most transformative. They're the ones that change behavior, attitude, energy, and destiny. So stay with me, because if you apply just one of them, only one, your life will never move at the same pace as before. When one closely observes the attitudes that distinguish strong men from weak men, one realizes that one of the most striking is the ability not to react impulsively. It's almost as if strong men have an internal radar that warns, breathe before you respond. They understand that every impulsive word can create a crack that is difficult to repair, whether in a relationship, an opportunity, or their own image. Weak men, on the other hand, let the heat of the moment decide for them, and then spend days trying to mend the damage. The strong man acts with intention, not with raw instinct. He reads the situation like a strategist who knows that, in many cases, calculated silence is worth more than any argument, and this attitude, however simple it may seem, transforms his life into a kind of game where he always has the advantage of lucidity. The second attitude that distinguishes strong men from weak men lies in silent integrity, that moral strength that only appears when no one is witnessing. Strong men maintain their principles even without an audience. They honor their word, not because someone will praise them, but because it defines who they are. Weak men, in turn, constantly negotiate their values in exchange for approval. Strong men don't do things to show off. They do them because they need to be consistent with themselves. And this consistency appears behind the scenes, by reading books like Atomic Habits, Can't Hurt Me, or The Subtle Art of Not Giving a FCK. They don't seek to flaunt knowledge, but to alter their own internal code. This attitude of constant integrity creates a silent presence that inspires more than speeches. And the more someone lives like this, the more they realize that self-mastery is the root of practically all other profound transformations. And the curious thing is how these two attitudes, impulse control and invisible integrity, begin to shape how strong men move through the world. They begin to see life clearly, avoiding unnecessary fights and protecting their own energy. When someone tries to provoke them, they don't fall into the emotional trap. They analyze the situation, breathe, and choose the best response. It's as if they have a natural mechanism to prevent external chaos from determining their internal state. A simple exercise that many practice is the conscious pause, taking a 3-second break before any reaction. This changes everything. And, as this maturity grows, fertile ground emerges for the next stage, the one that reveals how strong men deal with discomfort, pain, and psychological pressure in a completely different way from weak men. One of the rarest qualities among men, the one that makes them strong, is the ability to endure discomfort without turning everything into a spectacle. It's impressive how weak men transform any adversity into a drama. Traffic becomes a crisis. Criticism becomes a tragedy. A change becomes a reason to give up. Strong men, on the other hand, see discomfort as a rigorous but necessary teacher. They understand that pain is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that something within them is being sculpted. That's why they manage to maintain composure even when life gets tough. They don't run from discomfort. They adjust their bodies, they adjust their minds, and they move on. And this silent posture makes others even wonder, how does this guy endure all this without complaining? The truth is simple. Strong men have learned that whoever masters pain, masters destiny. Another powerful attitude, and one that definitively separates strong men from weak men, is the refusal to accept emotional crumbs. Weak men beg for validation, drag out conversations that have already died, and insist on relationships that drain their strength. Strong men, on the other hand, know when to turn their backs to preserve their own energy. They understand that attention is an investment and affection is an asset. When they realize they are only receiving crumbs, they walk away without making a speech. It's a silent retreat, but full of dignity, and this applies to everything. Toxic friendships, one-sided relationships, environments where there is only competition and no growth. A strong man knows that life is too short to waste energy on those who don't reciprocate, and this attitude creates a powerful cycle. Empty people move away, solid people get closer. The most interesting thing is that these two attitudes, enduring discomfort and refusing crumbs, shape psychological resilience in a way that few realize. Studies from American universities, such as Harvard and Stanford, show that people who consciously tolerate discomfort have higher levels of clarity in decision-making and a lower propensity for regret. This isn't motivational talk. It's neuroscience. It's the same principle used by elite athletes and special forces soldiers. Discomfort plus direction, mental strength. And this pattern appears in everyday life as well. For example, when a strong man faces a difficult financial phase, he doesn't panic. He regulates emotions, cuts excesses, learns, adjusts. When he perceives that someone is treating him with disinterest, he doesn't beg. He recalibrates connections. And as this inner strength grows, something inevitable begins to happen. Strong men begin to assume a level of responsibility and focus that weak men can never imagine. One of the most defining attitudes of strong men is taking full responsibility for their own lives. Weak men enter an endless cycle of external blame, blaming the government, blaming their parents, blaming their ex, blaming the economy, blaming their horoscope if necessary. Strong men, however, understand something simple but transformative. Taking responsibility doesn't mean carrying guilt. It means reclaiming power. When something goes wrong, they don't ask, "Who did this to me?" but rather, "What can I do about it?" This shift removes them from the victim position and places them in the strategist position. And interestingly, the more they adopt this posture, the more they realize that life reorganizes itself around those who take responsibility. Strong men create direction when others expect rescue. And this is one of the attitudes that most bothers those who prefer to live justifying their own stagnation. Another essential attitude is the ability to choose priorities and say no without guilt. Weak men try to please everyone, accept every invitation, get involved in every conversation, respond to every message, and then complain that life isn't moving forward. Strong men protect their focus as if it were gold. They know that every poorly given yes steals time, energy, and even identity. That's why they say no calmly, as if they understand that their own direction is worth more than momentary approval. This attitude is not arrogance, it's wisdom. A common practice among them is to review their commitments weekly, cutting out what doesn't contribute to their goals. It's simple, but it works. And as this habit grows, the world around them also changes. People begin to respect boundaries, opportunities become organized, and the schedule ceases to be a field of chaos and becomes a clear map of progress. These two attitudes, total responsibility and selective focus, create a type of clarity that few people experience. It's the same clarity found in leaders of large companies, elite athletes, and high-impact entrepreneurs. Productivity studies show that people who set priorities and take responsibility are up to 40% more likely to achieve long-term goals, and this shows up in everyday life. While a weak man spends hours discussing politics in a WhatsApp group, a strong man invests that same time learning something new, studying a financial asset, improving a skill. While a weak man accepts invitations that don't make sense, The strong man chooses environments that bring him closer to the future he wants to build. And this capacity for direction and focus naturally opens the way to the next level. Emotional independence and self-respect, areas where strong men shine and weak men simply crumble. One of the most striking attitudes of strong men is not depending on approval to act. This doesn't mean being rebellious or arrogant. It means having such a clear vision that the opinions of others become mere noise. Weak men shape their decisions based on what others will think, as if they live in an eternal quest for applause. Strong men, on the other hand, follow principles, not audiences. When they decide to start a project, change careers, travel alone, or study something new, they simply go, without asking anyone's emotional permission. That's why they often seem different. They are busy building their own identity while others are busy trying to please. And this attitude gives them a freedom that weak men can't even imagine exists. When you learn to act without waiting for validation, you discover that half your life was bound by invisible chains. Another powerful trait of strong men is distancing themselves from environments that drain their strength. Weak men insist on staying in places where they are disrespected, belittled, or ignored, as if they need to prove something to someone. Strong men understand that environment is destiny. They choose where they stay, who they talk to, what they consume, and what they tolerate. It's common to see strong men changing gyms, switching social circles, leaving toxic jobs, adjusting habits, not out of fussiness, but strategically. They know that if they remain in places that weaken their identity, their inner strength slowly degrades. This attitude of choosing fertile ground shapes not only the present, but the entire future. And as this selection becomes more refined, what happens is almost inevitable. Weak people naturally cannot keep up. These two attitudes, acting without expecting approval and distancing oneself from draining environments, create a type of emotional independence that completely transforms a man's posture. Research in human behavior shows that the feeling of autonomy is one of the strongest factors for psychological well-being. This explains why strong men have a different, more stable, firmer energy. They don't sway according to the opinions of others, nor do they allow themselves to be contaminated by toxic environments. And this is directly reflected in daily behavior. While a weak man continues to frequent the same places and have the same conversations that have kept him trapped, the strong man explores, grows, and evolves. He knows that the right environment multiplies his qualities, and when this independence is consolidated, a new kind of inner desire emerges to continuously improve, to evolve every day, a natural movement that leads us to the next point. One of the most consistent attitudes among strong men is investing daily in their own development. There's no such thing as, when I have time. They create time. Weak men wait to feel motivated, as if evolution depended on divine inspiration. Strong men understand that growth is a muscle. It only develops with repetition. They study, observe, practice, adjust. Sometimes it's reading a few pages a day. Other times it's watching a class, listening to a podcast, practicing a skill, writing down ideas. The important thing is not to stop. You notice this because strong men have one evident characteristic. Every day, they are at least slightly better than they were yesterday. It's not perfection, it's progression. And the more they advance, the more disproportionate the distance becomes between them and weak men, who keep promising themselves that I'll start on Monday. Another vital attitude is cutting out habits that sabotage one's own potential. Weak men are always saying, I'll do it later, I'll change it sometime, I'll start tomorrow, but tomorrow never comes. Strong men, on the other hand, have a radar for everything that weakens their identity. Vices, distractions, energy-draining routines, people who hold them back, activities that add nothing. They cut them out without ceremony. And it's not because it doesn't hurt. It does, but it hurts less than continuing to be a weak man. A practical example. When they realize they are spending too much energy on social media, they set screen time limits, leave their phones out of the bedroom, and replace an hour of endless scrolling with reading or exercise. When they realize a habit is stealing their mental presence, they replace it with something that restores focus. This self-cleansing attitude allows life to begin to flow with much more clarity and direction. These two attitudes, investing daily in development and cutting out self-sabotaging habits, create a cycle of continuous evolution so powerful that research in behavioral psychology calls it compound growth, the cumulative effect of micro-actions that change an entire life. It's the same logic that builds athletes, entrepreneurs, and impactful leaders. Small improvements, plus long-term, extraordinary results. And this is reflected in everyday life. While weak men repeat the same habits, consume the same content, and live the same narrative, strong men create better versions of themselves weekly. They know that discipline is freedom and that continuous refinement is the bridge between where they are and where they want to be. And, as this evolution progresses, new characteristics emerge, especially in the way strong men lead, observe, and silently influence everything around them. One of the most striking traits of strong men is how they speak little, observe much, and act with precision. It's almost hypnotic. While weak men rush to give their opinion on everything, strong men analyze the environment as if reading an invisible map. They see what no one else notices: people's behavior, the subtext of conversations, the patterns that repeat themselves. This silent attitude creates a natural authority. When they speak, it's not to compete for attention. It's to add something that truly moves the situation forward. And when they act, they do so objectively that it seems as if they had planned everything beforehand. Strong men understand that leadership isn't shouted, it's demonstrated. And this contained, firm, and calculated energy makes even those who don't like them end up paying attention. Another attitude that profoundly differentiates strong men from weak men is maintaining such high standards that weak people simply can't stand to be around them. It's not arrogance, it's natural selection. Strong men demand of themselves a level of posture, discipline, and consistency that naturally filters out who gets close. Shallow, self-serving, lazy, or manipulative people feel uncomfortable near high standards because there's no room for excuses there. Weak men try to please everyone and maintain any kind of connection so they don't end up alone. Strong men, on the other hand, choose who enters, who stays, and who leaves. When they realize someone isn't keeping up, they don't slow down, they keep walking. And this creates a powerful magnetic field. The weak move away, the strong move closer. These two attitudes, acting with quiet precision and maintaining high standards, shape a social energy that few understand, but everyone feels. Research on social dynamics shows that groups naturally gravitate toward individuals with inner clarity, emotional firmness, and high standards of behavior. This is why strong men end up leading even when they aren't trying to. They command respect, inspire change, and bring about improvements around them simply by being who they are. In everyday life, this is clear. While weak men engage in endless arguments, strong men end conflicts with a single sentence. While weak men adapt to their environment, strong men shape the environment around them. And this energy of quiet leadership is not the end. It's the final gateway to the closure of everything that distinguishes them. Ultimately, these attitudes aren't meant to make you better than others. That would be too simplistic. They're meant to make you better than you were yesterday. That's the real point. Strong men compete with their own limits, while weak men compete with anything outside of them. And when you understand that, you begin to realize that each day offers the chance to raise your standard, silently, without needing to announce anything, simply by living in a way that is more aligned with who you want to become. Now, let me ask you a direct question, one of those that pokes at your conscience and doesn't let you leave unchanged. How many of these attitudes do you already possess? And which ones do you still need to develop? This answer says a lot about where your life is headed. And, more importantly, it shows what you need to adjust starting today. Because it's not enough to just understand. Strong men apply, transform, and evolve. Weak men procrastinate. And the simple act of answering this question already mentally places you in the right group. So leave your answer in the comments. And if you want to continue evolving, there's an obvious next step, which is to become part of this men's development community by subscribing to this channel right now. Take a look at this video I've left for you on the end screen. It will elevate you even further. I'll leave it here. Just click and watch. See you there.